Welcome to the KickNPost YouTube channel and podcast with your hosts Amal Thompson and Chris Perry. And the NFL draft has passed. We gave you guys a first round pre-draft rookie video. Hopefully you guys are willing to tune into that. I'll throw a card up. But we're back with a full rookie draft, 3 rounds, 12 teams. Teal and Steel Dynasty League that we started this year as a startup league. But we had the rookies separate for obvious reasons. Waited for landing spots, then hopped in the draft and did it. So today we're going to review the draft a little bit, see where people made moves for certain guys, see where certain guys landed,
Sir.
And see if we lost any value, gained any value. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm good. I got my guy, so I'm happy.
He did, which we'll cover that.
I like how this.
We'll
this
cover
draft
that.
went for everybody,
We'll cover
so.
that. Because you had a couple guys, but you really shocked me with your pick, honestly. But go ahead, give the people
tough.
your insight.
Okay, so I'm probably gonna throw up the draft right now, and you want to run through it, or?
Yeah, let's go. I mean, first pick is like obvious. Not much to say about the first pick. Feel like if you guys are in a lot of rookie drafts, the first pick is probably going to be the same, even if it's super flex. Bijan Robinson lands with the Atlanta Falcons at number 8. A very run-heavy offense, a team that had Tyler Algier as a 1,000-yard rusher, and he wasn't even their full-year starter. They add the best running back in the draft, or according to Chris, the 1A to the 1A minus running back in the draft at the 8th pick. No surprises there. I mean, it was getting mocked pretty close to the draft that's where he'd land in that 8 to 12 range, and he did. So Matt pulls the trigger, takes Bijan at 1-1. Pretty simple. 1-2, we had Trig on for the mock.
Big Trig.
CJ Stroud is his guy. He's an Ohio State fan. CJ Stroud gets the actual draft capital at the 1-2 as well. Ended up going second pick overall to the Texans. They tried the smokescreen stuff with the Will Levis news and, they might go Will Anderson, which when we covered the first round of the actual draft at some point, we'll go into all the moves that teams made, but they were able to still get Will Anderson and get CJ Stroud.
Yeah,
But
at a price, but
But fantasy speaking, CJ Stroud at the 1-2. Most people probably would have gone Bryce Young here, but you're not gonna have an Ohio State starting quarterback in Dynasty and have Big Trig at the 1-2 and him not take CJ Stroud. So nothing crazy still. Otto's at the 1-3. Bryce Young was the first overall pick in the draft. Bryce Young goes to Carolina. Again, this is super flex. Quarterbacks are currency. Bryce Young's pretty elite prospect on paper, so I'm not surprised to see him go at the 1-3. There was one other guy in the quarterback class with pretty much the ceiling. We talked about him again in the mock, and he did get actual draft capital. That a lot of people, if you go into rookie drafts, are probably going to have at the 1-3 instead of Bryce Young because he'll go a little bit earlier. But can't really argue with the Bryce Young pick. It's a pretty safe pick. And we'll just have to see how he kind of pans out for the year. What kind of idea do you think? How do you think Bryce Young will perform? Because we didn't really get a chance to cover him in any of our player profile videos. But as the first overall pick in the draft, how do you think his first year is really going to shape up in Carolina?
I think he's going to be pretty solid. Like, Carolina already had a good team over there. The defense has been solid for the past year. They got stars over there with J.C. Horn, Brian Burns, I think, is still on that defense. And then you add just as good, if not a better playmaker at the QB spot. Like, they did trade a lot to get to that one, but they also went and got some weapons. Adam Thielen's no slouch. He's actually pretty big, bigger than I imagined. They got Mingo, no slouch. I think he is the biggest boomer bust in this draft. A lot of people were saying it was Jalen Hyatt, but I've seen Hyatt at his best, whereas with Mingo, I don't think he had the quarterback or the system to support what he can actually do. So we're going to see if he can do that in Carolina. They got Terrace Marshall still. They traded for your boy Laviska last year.
They got DJ Chark out there as well, which
they got
former
Chark.
Jag.
They added Miles Sanders, so it could get spicy sooner than expected. Because Bryce Young is a good player, we know that, but we got to see what the organization vision is for him year one and see how they plan to execute that. So I'm excited. I like the pick at 3.
I do as well. If you guys like free money, we always like to give you guys picks. Currently on Prize Picks, they have some of the full season stats for some of these players, and they have Bryce Young's passing yards at 3,699. I am in love with the under on that line. So take that as you will. I don't think as a rookie quarterback behind that Carolina line, they're going to really let him air the ball out that much. The receiving prospects don't lead me to believe they have 2,000-yard receivers on the team. So just doing math.
Well, don't forget about Hayden Hurst. No slouch.
As I was saying, I would be hitting that 3,699 passing yards under in quite a few parlays leading up to the season, which we will have Price Picks, Underdogs, and other platform videos dropping with that as well. Now, hopping back into the draft, we have Say Less K here. And in our pre-draft rookie mock, where we covered the first round of your rookie mock drafts, Say Less spoke a lot about potential. Chris Perry spoke a lot about quarterbacks being currency and the potential of a certain Anthony Richardson in terms of rushing floor, and if he figures out this passing thing, how high the ceiling can be for said player. Salas is at the 1-4. Anthony Richardson is available. Jahmyr Gibbs is available. Again, we did the pre-mock before landing spots, but on draft day, Anthony Richardson got actual draft capital at the 4th pick overall to the Indianapolis Colts. And Gibbs, no surprise to Chris, because he's been on the Gibbs train for as long as I can remember. But Gibbs, where I was projecting to land early second round, maybe late first round on a flyer, gets the 112 capital. Gets picked to the 12th spot by the Detroit Lions. So it left you with a little bit of a pickle, Chris. I want to hear your thought process on this one, because I know you're a big AR guy, but as we're seeing on the board, which you are screen recording, I assume, Jahmyr Gibbs is your 1-4.
I took the entire 2-hour limit to make this choice. And it's not because I was milking the clock. I was doing as much homework as possible on injury history, on what other positions are drafted this high, like the running back category, looking at all of AR throws, and I really wanted Anthony Richardson. I tried trading Deshaun Watson, and then around the hour and 45-minute mark, I just came to a brilliant conclusion, and I can love Anthony Richardson as much as I would like his skill set on my team, but Deshaun Watson's a superstar. Point blank period. I'm going to trade away a superstar to hope for another superstar. I mean, in terms of watching on Sundays, AR might look better doing it, but in terms of fantasy numbers, it all looks the same. So that wouldn't be the smartest move, whereas when you see Gibbs get that 112 capital in the draft, that means the Lions are committed. They had 2 running backs already, traded their second-round pick from, 3 years ago just to make this move. Means they have some plans for him. He has the skill set. I've been on that since day one. Not too far off from Bijan. They said the same thing. They didn't see too much of a difference. They were comfortable taking him at the 1-6 this year, which is even more crazy. But they traded back and still get their guy. I know everyone saw their reaction in the draft room, like they just hit the lotto, because they did. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. Don't overthink it. But a big reason why I took this is because just the way my team's structured. I have 2 superstar quarterbacks. I can't get the currency. But if the event that Jahmyr Gibbs, like for example, goes to Bobby the next pick, I know Bobby. He's never leaving Bobby's team. He's handcuffed for life. I can't touch him. So I had to make a tough decision. And structure-wise, it's better. Strategy makes sense. Let's ride.
You're right. I don't hate the pick. I was just a bit surprised. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs, if we had done this draft right after the first round landed, you probably would have sung a different tune. I mean, we figured DeAndre Swift would no longer be on the team.
Yeah.
Day 3
I was
happened.
taking him at 1-4 regardless.
Really?
Regardless.
Oh, that's wild.
Once you go to Detroit at that high, their line, their offense, they score 40 points a game.
You're right.
Let me get that.
You're right. That is a solid line. That is a solid offense. They'll utilize his pass catching ability, especially the first 6 games where Jameson Williams will be out. It's a great landing spot, and now with DeAndre Swift being in Philly, it's even a better landing spot. It's the Gibbs and David Montgomery show. So,
yes, sir.
Can't be upset at that pick at all. And then Bobby comes in at the 1-5, where all signs for him pre-draft were leading to JSN. I know he made a deal with Jacob to get that 1-5. We discussed that in our trade video that we dropped recently. But JSN's landing spot wasn't as favorable as we expected in terms of first-year production. And AR lands you at 1-5. You can't really... Again, we speak about ceiling, and if he's able to execute all his measurables and kind of find a way to piece it all together, we're going to look back at this draft and be like, why wasn't he the 1-1? Right? That's the best-case scenario. Worst case scenario, whatever they drop his rushing line at this year, if it's anything under 600, hammer the over. He will be toting that thing for the Colts. Anywho, 1-5 for Bobby. Adds a pretty solid prospect at quarterback. Don't hate it. We move on to 1-6. In Waddle I trust, a.k.a. Jordy. Drafts Devin Achane. I know you might not be a fan of the pick, Chris. I personally love the pick. We went on and on about
1-6.
This is my thing, right? I think this is Achane's backfield by week 9. I think he landed in the one spot that is fantasy viable for him. We talked about it on the last video. Miami has a perfect blocking scheme for this man. They're not going to put him back there to defend Tua. When he's on the field, he's getting the ball most likely. And he's a track athlete. Right. He's a track athlete. For sure. They're just going to send him. They're going to zone block and just send him in the open space. You're not going to have to do a lot of cutting. Just go straight. And we've seen Raheem Mostert be successful in that role. We've seen Jeff Wilson put up very viable fantasy weeks in that role. And I feel like Devin Achane is going to be their guy. Probably, if all things break right, coming out of camp. But I'll give it till week 9. I was willing to take him in that 1-7, 1-8 range when I had both those picks still. But I knew he wasn't getting past Jordy, who is a Miami fan. So... Yeah.
The only reason I'll justify it is because he is also a Miami fan.
Yeah.
So get your guy. But at the same time, this is Dynasty. You're right. Week 9, he'll have that spot. I don't like him better than JSN in like the next 2-3 years.
Understand.
It's hard for me to pick Jordan Addison or not to pick Jordan Addison over him the next 2-3 years. Will Levis, you know how I feel.
Yeah.
And have to update the viewers on this. I'm starting to fall in love with Quentin Johnston. I've been seeing some more clips, and the landing spot just makes too much sense now.
The landing spot for him is also very viable.
Sense.
I still don't love the prospect, but when you get a chance to actually develop him, be in a wide receiver room with the right guys, have the quarterback who could actually let us see if you could extend and use your reach, use your ability, your what's it called, catch radius as a 6'3" receiver. Yeah. I believe a little bit more. I feel like just like I went up on Achane, I do have more belief in Quentin Johnston.
Yeah.
But I don't hate it at the 1-6 if that's your guy. I was willing to invest at the 1-7 or 1-8 because I feel like he could be electric for multiple years in that offense. Obviously, we'll probably be missing Tyreek Hill soon, but Jalen Waddle's no slouch, and they'll probably retool that offense to still add more speed. So, Achane at the 1-6.
I just feel like the 6 guys who are supposed to be a lock in this draft, Jason at the 1-7 is a steal.
Yeah.
So,
going into the 1-7, I did have the pick pre-draft. I moved it draft day while I was on the clock. I moved the 1-7 and the 2-5 for DJ Moore in the 1-9. I will say, I think it's a pretty solid deal. At first, people were saying, "Oh, that's a fleece." But when I look at JSN at the 1-7. I think his career arc is way higher than DJ Moore's. And then I look at some of the prospects that fell at the 2-5. I could have still enjoyed a lot of the prospects back there as well. I still like the value for this year, and I feel like I could be competing this year team-wise now with the wide receiver depth that I have and the running backs that I have. But in terms of if I look at this deal 2 years from now, I might be like, man, I traded potentially not a Justin Jefferson type player because he's not that athletic, but just a very viable pass catcher in an offense that's probably going to be ascending with all the pieces they're adding out there. So, but Cinnabron makes the move, Joseph, and takes JSN, which that is the right pick. He is that guy. Pick 20 for the Seattle Seahawks. We'll see how it shakes up, man. Really have nothing negative to say about the kid. We did drop a whole video on JSN already. The things that we said before still reign true. He's not going to be forced to play on the outside. They have DK for that, and Lockett for that. I feel like he'll be in his most comfortable role, probably in the slot, and he'll do numbers. It'll just probably take some time for him to get majority targets in that offense, but be patient with him. I think he'll probably still be worth a day one start, but I would wait. Keep him on taxi squad at least 1 or 2 weeks and see what shakes out there in Seattle, because they do have a duo in that backfield now, which we'll get to that later.
Them boys loaded up on offense. They're not playing.
Yeah, they're going crazy over there.
Wrong.
Jordan Addison at the 1-8. I like the landing spot. You can't double cover Jordan Addison in the slot over there or on the outside because Justin Jefferson's there. If it's anything Minnesota showed me with this pick, they will be airing this ball out. It'll be going all over the place. Minnesota gets him at the 24. We did have a run of 4 straight wide receivers in the actual NFL draft. 20 through 24 were all wide receivers. I ended up with the one picked at the 24. Cinnabon ends up with the one picked at the 20th. At the 1-9, I decided to stick with my mantra that QBs are currency. Obviously, Will Levis slid down the actual draft board, got taken with the first, or no, actually it was the second pick in the second round of the NFL draft to the Tennessee Titans. Technically the first pick because it was the 33 pick. But I feel with the measurables that he has, and with it being a second round pick, there's a lot more investment there. I got to see at least what it shakes out. I got to buy the lotto ticket at the 1-9. Yes, I could have ended up with the Quentin Johnsons or the Zay Flowers of the world, but I have enough wide receiver depth. This is a super flex league, and I decided to side with adding quarterback talent to see what can shake.
You're not wrong.
So,
as much as I do hate Will Levis, that's his best chance.
Yeah.
Or his second best chance at becoming a starter. Because if you're not going to be a top 10 pick, then you don't have the job for sure. The first pick of the second round pretty much goes to Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill's butt cheeks. Go ball out, man. Go do your thing. That's how you be decent. And I feel like if anything, he's a younger Tannehill that's athletic. Like, I think their throws are pretty similar. Ryan Tannehill ain't nothing too crazy. So if you can't beat Ryan Tannehill, that's saying a lot. But even if you don't beat him this year, he's going to get handed the keys at some point because of that second round capital. So
exactly. He'll be there for at least 4 years. They're paying him a decent signing bonus. Obviously, it's not as hefty as if they invested first round, but we could see him with the starting position back end of this year to, for sure, early next year. He'll be right in my taxi squad, and we'll see if he evolves. I mean, hey, if you had Desmond Ridder on your taxi squad going into this year, look how quickly that value changed on the kid, right? I could go back and buy a Zay Flowers for a Desmond Ridder today. You know what I mean? That's how I see it. So, look at the 110. Josh Joshua at the 110. Quentin Johnston slides off the board at the 110. As you heard from us earlier, we are growing on this prospect a lot. But I have a funny thing to tell you, Chris.
What's up?
The last time a TCU receiver was taken in the first round, guess what pick it was?
What was it?
21. That's also the pick that Quentin Johnston went at.
Cool. Who was it?
Jalen Reagor. Also,
okay, big difference.
Hold up. Also, he was taken ahead of a wide receiver that got taken by the Minnesota Vikings, which also happened this draft.
Okay, all right.
Hey, history might repeat itself.
Not the same. No, history's
I'm just being annoying. I'm just being annoying.
Was a return man.
Hey,
look into your camera.
Hey,
Jalen Reagor was a glorified return man.
Okay.
He was not a receiver. He played receiver in college, but as you can see, Quentin is actually a receiver.
Jalen Reagor was known for
run routes,
yards after catch as well. Just saying.
Yeah, that's return man activity. Return man activity.
Yeah.
Go have it. Keep it. You saw what that got you. Same thing with John Ross. Not a receiver, a glorified return man. Quentin Johnston is a receiver.
Okay.
We can resume the program.
I just had to throw some of the similarities out there. TCU wide receivers at 21, man. They're going to be tied together for their career unless this man blows up. Hopefully. I'm rooting for the kid, though. Saw the video of him telling his mom that she could put in her retirement papers. Almost put a tear in my eye, man. That's what it's all about, right? Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite receivers, Zay Flowers, touches down at the 111 to King Caleb. Here's my take. Zay Flowers had so many landing spots, and he was mocked to Baltimore. I don't care what anyone tells me. The Baltimore offense is going to change, yada, yada, yada. It is not the best landing spot for Zay Flowers. Fantasy speaking, it is not the best landing spot for Chris, you did not just say it's the best landing spot for the man.
It is. They're changing the offense. They know that
Chris.
triple option doesn't win games.
Chris.
Yes, I know.
He
I don't
is
like
not-
it either, but it's true.
That's the thing. I'm not saying like he won't succeed. I'm not saying you don't take Zay Flowers at the 111, but this was not the best case scenario for Zay Flowers for fantasy. That's all I'm
I
saying.
think it is because of the offense. You have Lamar. They do a lot of they're still going to do a good part of their triple option. They're going to throw him in the slot and just have him in an RPO. He's still going to have certain gadget plays to get the most out of him. Like that's, I believe, is a better spot because they don't play receivers traditionally in Baltimore, especially with someone of that skill set.
You know what he gives me shades of?
What?
Who I think Lamar got to play with for 1 year? Or maybe I'm tripping. Steve Smith.
No, he didn't play with Steve.
But
yeah, I don't see Zay as a pure receiver like Steve. I see him, like I said, I see Zay Flowers at what people thought Rondell Moore would be. So
Yeah.
this is going to be the same role.
okay. I get it.
So
And we'll see how
I
it
just think
shakes
it's a
up.
better offense. You got JK, you got Lamar, and then you got legit receivers. He's going to be forgotten about on certain plays where you'd be like, damn, there goes Zay again. And, like,
It all
I'm gonna
depends
be
on
upset.
how
So,
OBJ shows up. What
Yeah,
what version
part.
of OBJ we get? Rashad Bateman's
it's what
coming-
version of
yeah.
OBJ and if Rashad Bateman can stay on the field because he's still good.
I think Rashad Bateman's amazing, but again, he can't stay healthy.
Yeah. Yes.
So we hop into the last pick of the first round, Zach
I don't even
Charbonnet.
want to talk about him. No.
Horrible
For what?
landing spot, two-headed backfield out
Awful.
there in Seattle. Unless they plan to hand the keys over to him and then have Kenneth Walker be like less on the field because he is a little bit undersized compared to Zach Charbonnet. There's things coming out about how he approaches the hole when he's running as a running back. But currently speaking, right after the draft, before any off-season camp or training camp news or any of that stuff drops, not a fan of the landing spot for Zach Charbonnet. Not a fan of Zach Charbonnet, period. At the 112, I understand it, but I'm good. I would have traded out of that pick or taken Hendon Hooker. Let's kind of speed through a little bit more on this second round. Tyjae Spears lands with the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry's still there. Love Tyjae Spears. Only way I see him really elevating is with a Derrick Henry injury. I'm sure you will agree. Or if Derrick Henry still gets moved. But I love Tyjae Spears. And at the 2-1, I mean, you could do worse. Matt did the right thing. I think Matt acquired a first-round pick in Sky Moore to trade out of this pick.
Yeah.
Smart move. Smart move on his part. Don't hate it at all. So we move on to the next pick. Trig as Rashee Rice. I don't love the prospect, but the landing spot makes sense. Apparently, Patrick Mahomes said, go get my guy, Rashee Rice. What I'm learning is Patrick Mahomes is a bad judge of talent because he also said, go get my boy, CEH. So I'm not too excited because I didn't love Rashee Rice pre-draft, and I still don't love it. But when you're a Kansas City Chief receiver, one of them got to catch for 1,000 yards eventually, right? Like if he's throwing for 5,000 yards, one of these wide receivers have to catch for 1,000 yards at some point in their career, mathematically speaking. Because I don't know how he gets to 5,000 yards with no 1,000-yard receivers.
That would be true. He throws to like a lot of people though. Like at least 5 or 6 receivers would have like 700-800 yards.
That's the thing. How does he do it? Like Travis Kelce gets his 1,000 usually, but then the rest of them are just all coming off the back end with like 850, 894, right? One day. I believe it's going to be Justin Ross, but let me chill out. I'm not going to give y'all too much. But I believe Justin Ross could be
Forget about Kadarius Toney.
the diamond in the rough.
Fell off a cliff.
The thing is, he's still made out of paper, so I don't think Kadarius Toney will play 6 full games.
Forgot about that.
Going back to Otto, he employs the quarterback's at currency route, takes Hendon Hooker at the 2-3. Obviously not great draft capital, 3rd-round pick. But that team, if he wins over the coaches in this next year, obviously this is Jared Goff's year. The Detroit Lions have a chance to win the division for the first time in a very long time. That division is wide open, by the way. Wide open. Which I have a parlay in. I'm going to send it to Chris so you can throw it in the video. $5 to win $3K. I got the Lions winning the division. Hendon Hooker, if he gets handed the keys to this offense with all these weapons in like a year or two, pick him in the 2nd round of a rookie draft, you're going to be wheels up. I still think Hendon Hooker has a lot to learn. I think he has measurables that can make him a good quarterback in the NFL, but he is going to need to get... I know Trey said you can't really nurture a 25-year-old man, but I know there's a lot of potential there, and the weapons are just... There's too many weapons out there in Detroit. if you give him the keys, he should be able to produce on a fantasy level for you. Win games, who knows? But fantasy, which is what we're worried about here right now, I feel like he could be a steal at the 2-3.
Yeah, I was really upset because I had the 2-4, and I was 1,000% going to take him at the 2-4.
For sure.
It was also a part of my Gibbs plan. It's like, okay, I can still take Hendon in the back end.
Yeah.
Auto ruin that for me, which is like, it's cool. But I ended up making the most out of it. I had traded back 4 spots, caught an extra 24 first, and then Jonathan Mingo got taken at the 2-4 with my pick. So
great pick, by the way.
Happy.
Great pick, by the way.
Phenomenal pick.
Jonathan Mingo, I
See you
feel
guys next
like
year.
could be a very viable wide receiver 1 for Carolina. So I love the pick.
Yeah.
Not going to stress too much about it. Keep it moving. Josh Downs, slot receiver for Indianapolis. Somebody for AR to throw to in addition to Michael Pittman. Love the landing spot. Draft capital, not the best, but it is what it is. I think he'll immediately kind of cement himself in that slot role. Goes at the 2-5. Which Cinnabron, a.k.a. Joseph, got from me. Chase Brown at the 2-6. Jordy in Waddle I Trust doubles down on running backs. I like Chase Brown. I like the landing spot. Joe Mixon's still there. Doesn't seem like you guys are letting him go. But Chase Brown could be your new Samaje Perine. Or Chris Evans could be your new Samaje Perine. Not really a big fan of Trevion Williams. But one of those two guys I feel like will lock up the second running back spot. And if Joe Mixon gets hurt or gets released, that's a lottery ticket right there in Chase Brown as well. I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah, another player I was hope would follow me, but since he goes to Cincy, he gets more love. And you're not wrong. Talent's there. The size is there.
Mm-hmm.
He could end up taking the backfield sooner than expected. Like, Mixon did fall off a little bit in terms of stats.
Yeah.
I think, just personally speaking, that was from the lack of production from the line. We swore we'd fix it this offseason. Clearly didn't. But the line is a lot better now, especially with Orlando Brown. He's OP in run block. I love him for that. So it should help Mixon, but will also help Chase. So that's what I'm really interested to see who outperforms who. I think it's going to be Chase because the younger legs, one-cut monster, explosive.
Yeah.
Y'all know how I feel about Chase.
100%.
I'm up right now. So I think he's a great pick in the second round. Should have been an early second, but because of Joe Mixon coming back, a lot of people are hesitant. But like you said, next year, 2 years from now, he should have the starting job.
It's potential. I mean, obviously, you guys could invest in another running back going forward, but there's potential there. Kendre Miller, 2-7 to Bobby Woods. New Orleans is where he lands. Again, if Alvin Kamara serves any time or has to get suspended, I should say, that could be another lottery ticket behind a New Orleans offensive line that's pretty solid as well. Pretty talented back. Don't hate it at the 2-7. Dalton Kincaid at the 2-8 is where I just get a little bit sad that I didn't have more second-round picks because the Buffalo landing spot is elite. He gets first-round draft capital. If you're a Dawson Knox fan, he'll be on the field to block, but fantasy-wise, shed your tears. He's useless. It's Dalton Kincaid's season for the receiving, and I think he'll be a very viable fantasy asset going forward. Of course, tight ends take a little bit of time to mature, but he gonna be on the field early and often.
He's gonna be on the field.
Yeah.
His ball skills, tracking. I've seen some body movement. I'm like, okay, this guy can play now. He's a little bit smaller for a tight end apparently, but he's really big for a receiver. So I was deciding between him and Jalen Hyatt at the pick. Pure receiver wise, he's better. So I gotta trust the process because this league is a little different. It's you can play a receiver or a tight end at the position. So like, theoretically, it is smarter to stack more receivers, not even have a tight end, but I do think he's in that elite company just because of the landing spot and the opportunity.
100%. That wide receiver 2 opportunity in Buffalo is wide open. Gabe hasn't been consistent in that position, so they're looking for a guy that they can depend on to be the number 2 to Stephon Diggs, and Dalton Kincaid could play that role. So it's a good landing spot for the kid. Jalen Hyatt at the 2-9, New York Giants. I see a more elite version of Darius Slayton. Which, I mean, Darius Slayton's had pretty solid fantasy weeks, but pretty inconsistent. The Giants still don't have a traditionally strong passing quarterback. They have to build up their offensive line for us to really see what Danny Dimes could do as a passer. But
I agree.
Again, one of those guys that you'll stash on your taxi squad, and we'll see how quickly he'll work himself into the lineup. Michael Mayer at the 2-10 is also a very great pick. Shouts out Jacob again for another solid pick. He really did well, I think, in this rookie draft. Michael Mayer to Las Vegas. He should be starting day one. No more Foster Moreau, I think he got dropped. No more Darren Waller. They take Michael Mayer in the second round right after Sam Laporta, which we'll get into him a little bit in the third round. His comp is old tight end out of Dallas. I can't remember his name right now. Jason Witten.
Witten.
Which I see it slow. We'll get to a spot. We said it in his player profile video. But sure hands. And in the red zone, I feel like he'll be kind of beneficial to Jimmy Garoppolo. Also, Jimmy Garoppolo has played with great tight ends in the past. Jimmy Garoppolo has made Kittle explode fantasy-wise. Jimmy Garoppolo played in New England with tight ends. Jimmy Garoppolo has Michael Mayer as his tight end now. So make of that as you will. Tank Bigsby at the 211. Now, as a Jags fan, I am honestly disappointed in the pick. I understand why. Doug Peterson loves a backfield that has multiple running backs. He likes to give his running backs chances to breathe. We saw last year he would try to get Jermichael Hasty involved. He tried to get whichever second running back we had involved with Travis Etienne. We saw at the beginning of the year James Robinson getting pretty much a 50-50 split with Travis Etienne. This leads me to believe that Tank Bigsby is led to be the new guy in this offense, to be the 1B to Travis Etienne's 1A. I feel like we had other positional needs to address, but I understand why. And fantasy-wise, I feel like he could be a flex spot for you because he'll get early work. He'll be on the field probably week 1. I don't love it, but 211 fantasy, I understand. It's not a bad pick. You
like that pick over the next one?
That's why I said reason I don't love the pick, though, is Roschon Johnson has an opportunity to potentially supplant Khalil Herbert and be the number 1 running back in Chicago in an offense that's very run-heavy with a run-heavy quarterback. And all the hype has been on how talented this man is as a runner. The only thing that really stunted his growth was him being behind Bijan Robinson. To be able to just sneak into him at the 212 while already having Khalil Herbert on the team, Jacob pretty much wins another draft pick. I don't think he had a bad draft pick this entire draft at all. I mean, he moved up, gave away first-round picks and stuff, but to execute a starting tight end, potentially wide receiver 1, potentially running back 1, all at second-round picks, I can't be upset with what he did here. What do you think?
No, good spots, good potential. Didn't really overpay for anyone. Yeah. And especially how the league is structured, got great value at certain positions, like you said. So I think he had one of the better drafts.
Yeah. I think he killed a starter draft by how he moved around, and I think he also killed his rookie draft. And now his team's built to, I think, perform year 1. But then he has so much capital to move around. He can throw his weight around once the season starts, once injuries start setting in. He could throw some of his weight around and even solidify the roster even more. So I think he did a really good job moving off certain picks. We get to the third round. We're going to kind of speed through this one. Mims, I'm still not a fan of as a receiver, but he lands in Denver, which is very crowded. Just leads me to believe somebody's not going to make it out of training camp or somebody's going to get traded. My vote is KJ Hamler. He did have a hip injury that he suffered about 2 months ago, so he might be the odd man out. But you're talking Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton. Right now, KJ Hamler. They just got the tight end out of New Orleans, Adam Troutman, somebody that Sean Payton loved a lot. There's a lot of mouths to feed out there. I don't love it. He is a speedster. He could open up things downfield. I feel like he really takes over that KJ Hamler role. But fantasy-wise, I don't really care to tag him at all. Big Trig goes Deuce Vaughn. Big Trig's a Dallas fan. Deuce Vaughn's story is beautiful. I don't think he'll be super fantasy relevant, but right now he could ascend to that number 2 spot, be the new Tony Pollard for Tony Pollard. So we'll buy the lottery ticket there. Jaden Reed, love the landing spot, love the talent out of Michigan State. Love that it's a wide open wide receiver room. I'm not a huge fan of Christian Watson as a wide receiver. I think he is very shifty, big-bodied, but I think playing with Jordan Love, I don't think he runs crisp routes yet. I think he's a good yak guy, yards after catch guy, but as a natural receiver, I don't think he has that to his game yet. And Romeo Doubs is a cool prospect as well, but I think Jaden Reed could definitely elevate up this chart. Keyshawn Boutte, wide receiver, New England, 6th-round pick, LSU, huge fall from grace. If you're a big Dynasty guy, he was a top-ranked Dynasty prospect coming into this year, and he kind of flopped. But at the 3-4, he could potentially be the wide receiver 1 for New England. Any of those 4 prospects really jump out at you, Kris?
Besides Boots, I like that landing spot. I think that's the only spot he could be successful in based off his off-field issues.
Yeah.
He's going to need that, like, military
Structure
to get the most out of him, because if not, he was donezo. So this is a better life decision, I think.
For sure.
Out of all these picks, I think he'll be the best out of the third round. Jaden Reed was a little bit intriguing. Had to look into him for a little bit.
Yeah.
Not too sure what to expect with him landing in Green Bay. I still have Watson as the 1. I still have Dobbs as the 2. People forget how good Romeo Dobbs was before he got injured midseason. So I wouldn't jump on him. Like, I've seen a lot of people be really big on this guy and dropped him like late second. I'm like, I don't know why, but I think Boot is going to be the best out of those you mentioned.
Okay. I'm a Jaden Reed fan, but I don't know how much I'm willing to invest. I think third round, I'm down to drop any of those picks on him.
For sure.
But we'll keep it moving. Eric Gray, New York Giants, potentially the new backup for Saquon Barkley. Interesting back out of Oklahoma, but nothing really too crazy there. Tyler Scott to Chicago. Hasn't been playing wide receiver that long, but had a very productive year with Desmond Ridder 2 years ago, and then had a very crappy quarterback out there in Cincinnati this year. Lands with Chicago, who has DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney. Probably not going to get on the field that much, but maybe he elevates his game. Could potentially kick Chase Claypool off the field, but no promises. Sam Laporta to the Detroit Lions at the 3-7. Love the pick for Null, a.k.a. Spencer. Sam Laporta is going to be their Hawkinson replacement. He will be a starter day 1. This isn't really a tight end premium league or like a league where you have to start a tight end, but to get somebody who could be fantasy viable in the 3-7 spot, love it for the kid. Good job. Darnell Washington. Fantasy-wise, it was a horrible landing spot.
Awful.
For the Pittsburgh Steelers, though, from a football perspective, great draft pick. You add a huge guy on the outside to be a blocker for Najee. If anything, the Steelers did the best they could to make Najee's fantasy season super bright. If he stays healthy, that offensive line should be probably 5x better than it was last year. Because of how often he'll be on the field, because he's such a good blocker, we could see, some potential for some red zone targets. I don't think he's going to command over like 5 targets a game, maybe, even if that, because Pat Freiermuth will still be on the field. He's a better receiver. But he's a big blocking tight end who will have a lot of snap counts coming out the gate. So at the 3-8, I understand. Why not? Let's take the flyer on it.
Yeah.
Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee lands with the Cleveland Browns. I think the pick right after Jalen Hyatt in the real draft. Goes a full round after Jalen Hyatt in this draft. Pretty talented, but suffered injury. Not much to say. I think he has pretty similar skill set. Run fast, get open. A lot of the tape I watched, he was, again, blown coverages, running past DB, so have not much to add there. But at the 3-9, you're really just trying to find guys who could find their way on the field, and out there in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson. I was hoping Jalen Hyatt landed there. Maybe Tillman could be Deshaun Watson's Jalen Hyatt. We'll see.
Hopefully. We'll see.
Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State lands with Houston. That, again, wide receiver room, crazy open. No more Brandon Cooks. So you're looking at guys like Nico Collins. His name's escaping me right now. John Mechie. Xavier Hutchinson now. Tank Dell. Right? You're looking at a lot of young wide receivers. It's really going to be the most consistent guy in camp. Will get those starting snaps to start the year. So the 3-10, don't hate it. One thing I will want to point out, as Stetson Bennett goes at the 3-11, Tank Dell is not anywhere on this board. And I feel like that was a huge oversight by everyone involved, including myself at the 3-12, where I went with Schoonmaker because I think he will be starting at tight end for Dallas next year. But I was at the last pick of the draft, didn't pay enough attention, didn't realize Tank Dell hadn't been drafted yet, and now I'm looking at it like, sheesh. How did we get out the third round without Tank Dell being taken? Third round actual draft capital, if I'm not mistaken.
Second round, I think.
Requested by C.J. Stroud. Really? Second? I feel like it was 100 and something picks.
Either second or early third.
I think it was. Yeah, double check that real quick. But he's in a wide open. He's in a wide open situation, and he's definitely going to have crazy snap count off the rip. And he's a great route runner. And it was a huge oversight on my part. And now, if you want him in this league, you'll have to pay at least 800 fab, which I am not willing to do for Tank Dell. Love you, Tank Dell. I'll root for you on somebody else's roster, but I cannot afford Tank Dell. But he could explode on that Texans team with CJ Stroud. So
yeah.
Closing thoughts.
He was the third round 69th overall.
Okay. Hey, great draft capital for the kid. And again, we took guys that were going in the 6th round ahead of him. So again, oversight on our part, but I think this was a pretty solid rookie draft. Winners of this rookie draft, I will for sure say Otto, because he made it out with 2 quarterbacks. Obviously, I gave Jacob his praises earlier, so I'm not going to go with him first, but he definitely won this draft, in my opinion, as well, with how his team's currently structured. I like what you were able to do in some spots, Chris. I like the Kincaid pick. I like the Gibbs pick.
I knew it was coming.
I like all of that for sure. I don't hate my draft because I got value out of it, but I really got to see what Will Levis shakes into. And my least favorite draft, honestly, right now is Caleb's.
Really?
Because he leaves with Zay Flowers, which is good. But I'm not a fan of the Tyjae Spears pick currently.
He traded up for that, too.
He traded up for that. I don't love the Tank Bigsby pick that much, especially with Rashawn Johnson right behind it. And I definitely don't like the Stetson Bennett pick because I feel like he'll probably be a good locker room guy. But if we're talking fantasy, he might get a couple starts because I expect Matt Stafford to get hurt. But that offense is going to be atrocious. They might trade Cooper Kupp before season, maybe mid-season. And that's what he made it out the rookie draft with and lost his first-round pick for next year. So that's how I'm seeing it. You have any thoughts on it?
No, I'm pretty on board with what you just said. Besides King Caleb, I don't know what you're doing, bro. Hopefully we can see it pan out this year. It looks like he's in championship mode with Tyjae Spears, hopefully. So good luck to you. But I like it, man. I think a lot of people got their guys.
100%.
So you can't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah, I didn't really hear anybody really upset about who went where. There are people trying to get to certain spots to get certain guys, but everybody left the draft with guys that I heard them talking about pre-NFL draft. So I'd say pretty sharp rookie draft, and you could expect a lot of your rookie drafts to shake up similarly. We do have another league to cover the rookie draft in, and then we have another league that should be starting the rookie draft soon. So this will be first of many rookie draft reviews. I'd like to thank y'all for watching. I appreciate the support. We're actually at 439 subscribers now. But help us get to 500. Keep liking, keep subscribing, keep sharing. New Kick and Post merch, again, exclusive right now. But planning to set up a shop soon. So hopefully you guys can cop some merch as we go into the season. We're doing NFL logo sweatshirts.
Yes, sir.
We'll see y'all on the next video. Thank y'all for watching, and peace.